Hi, thank you for joining me on this tutorial on how to make this small dog knitted sweater on your 48 or 46 pin knitting machine. This is my first ever video tutorial, so please bear with me as I get through it. I'm a little nervous. I know it'll be fine. I'm excited to show you guys how to do this. This is made in all one piece on your machine. There is no sewing involved. The only thing extra are the little cuffs around the legs, and they are done with a single crochet. Overall, this pattern is relatively easy. There are a couple of places where you'll have to pay a little closer attention than you're used to if you're just making tubes, but it's quite easy. It only takes about an hour and a half to finish, start to finish, and your dog will have the cutest sweaters to keep them warm this winter. Like I said before, this is made on the 46 or 48 pin circular knitting machine. I will be using the Addy Express King size. For this, you are going to need a crochet hook. I am using a 4mm. You can use a 5 or a 6. Size doesn't really matter on that as much. As long as you can pick up your yarn, you should be fine. You're also going to need a needle to cast off your machine, whatever you prefer. I don't prefer these, but I lost my other one. A pair of scissors, waste yarn that is different from the yarn you'll be using on your sweater, and then you'll need bumped my tripod, and then you'll need whatever yarn you're using for your sweater. For the sweater we're making together, I'm going to be using the I Love This yarn from Hobby Lobby. This is the color. This is so pretty and so good for a boy or a darker blue colored sweater if you like that. This is also a I Love This yarn. I'll add in what it's called. This one is a self-striping. I definitely recommend doing a self-striping or a colorful one if you're wanting something with more of a design, simply because this is done all in one piece. It is not doubled. If you have a bunch of color changes on the inside, that will be up against your dog, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable. So, I have made this for the 46 or 48. I do not have any other machines other than the 22, and the 22 is way too small for these to actually work, unless it's for a doll or for the smallest, tiniest puppy imaginable. Because the width of the back on the 22 ends up only being about this big. And it hasn't worked on the smallest dog that I've found. So I really recommend doing this on your 46 or 48. However, you could possibly do this on your 40 or your 36 to make it just a little bit smaller in this area, so like around the body, to make it a little bit smaller if you have a smaller dog than this. Like I said before, I do not have one of these machines, either of the smaller ones, and so I did the math for when to cast on and off, and I'll explain this in the tutorial. The only thing I haven't figured out is if the row counts will still match, or if it'll end up being way too long. So you may have to adjust to make it shorter in the event it doesn't work. But I actually went ahead and wrote out the math for all of them. So if you decide to try these, let me know. I'd love to know if it works out or not, or if it ends up being too long. Okay, so we are going to get our machine out and our waste yarn, and we're going to get ready to cast on. We are going to be working a panel, so we'll be working back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, rather than all the way around. I know that it's scary, but I promise it's really, really easy. There's just a couple things to look for, and then you'll be golden. But don't put your machine in panel mode. Keep it in the circular knitting mode. We're gonna need that in a little bit. So, have your machine out. We're gonna come back to this really fast. This is supposed to say pins. Just disregard that it says rows. I'm using the 46 machine. Whatever machine you're using, these are the numbers you'll want to keep up with. I'll tell you when we're going to use what number during the tutorial. Again, I've only tested these two. I cannot tell you if these will work. I know that the numbers will work, but I have a suspicion that the length of the sweater will end up being too long with how skinny it is. But if you test it, let me know. So we're working the 46. If you're working a different one, you'll use the numbers for that. We're going to cast on however many pins your top number is. So for me, it's 27 pins. If you're doing the 48, it's 28 pins. That's again pins. Whatever your top number, that's how many pins we're going to be casting on with our waste yarn. So you're going to cast on like normal. I need to pull out a little bit of slack in my yarn. You're going to cast on like normal, like you do on every other project, but just onto those pins that you had. So we're going to in and out, in and out, in and out, all the way down to your number. For me, I have on the Addie King, there are numbers actually in the plastic right here, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's just what I watch. You can also just count them, whatever works for you. Okay, this one is 27 for me. So we want to make sure that this connects and secure in here. So we're going to push this in here. And we're going to keep turning just a little bit more because we want it to be secure in this hook. So as we keep turning, you'll see this hump here in between 27 and 28, or whatever the hump is between your last pin. Right next to your last pin, there should be a hump. And now your working yarn is on top of that hump. We're going to very slowly keep turning slowly until this yarn goes underneath this hump. So if you'll keep watching, it's going, and now it's underneath. It literally pulled it right under. You're gonna stop. Now, instead of keeping turning and going that way, we're gonna turn our crank the opposite direction. These are gonna let go of this yarn. You're gonna get it back, which is good. So you're gonna let go of those two, and as you turn, you'll notice that your working yarn gets hooked on this hump again. That's what you want. You want to make sure that there's nothing to push down yet. If you'll watch, this hook is going to pull this down under, and it's actually going to pull it into the machine. Again, this is what we want. So now it has pulled it into the machine. Now you can just keep knitting like normal in this direction. Before we get too far into this, I'd just like to note that my machine has a broken gear in the handle over here. And so sometimes when I crank, a lot of times when I crank, it is very, very, very loud. There's nothing wrong with it. It works fine. There's just a couple of messed up gears in my crank. I've already ordered a new part, but it hasn't come in yet. People were really excited for this tutorial, so I wanted to get it done for you guys as soon as possible, which means you'll have to just ignore the cranking noise. But so now we're at number 1 again. This is number 1. Again, we want to lock it into place. So we're going to go to the hump right next to it, and you're going to watch for this yarn to go underneath as you crank. So it keeps going, and now it's underneath. Once it's underneath, then you can turn back around. Make sure you are watching your first and last peg very closely, because a lot of times this loop on the bottom will not be where it needs to be. And if you're not paying attention, you'll get messed up and you'll have to restart. And let me tell you, I've restarted over and over and over and over again. Here's a second one, like a lot. So, and that's just on this sweater. On my others, I have 2 other ones that I've made, and I've restarted on those. So just make sure that you're paying attention. Don't do this when you've got other kids or stuff going on. I wouldn't even recommend doing this while watching something. It takes about an hour. I'd recommend actually setting aside that time to make your sweater with your undivided attention, or you might get messed up. So again, now that that's underneath here, I'm just going to go back. You only need a few yarns of a few rows of waste yarn. You don't need a whole lot. I do recommend at least 5. However, see again, it's not where this is supposed to be. So you'll want to make sure that you're paying attention, or you could lose it. Again, over this hump, once it goes underneath the hump, you're good to turn around. Don't keep going once it goes underneath. Keep doing this motion and using the waste yarn. Just use a yarn that you don't think that you'll use, or you don't like, it's ugly, whatever, so that you can practice this motion, because once like we actually start with your sweater, it can't be undone. It'll just be this is what we're doing. Keep on going. I'm probably going to do one more round of waste yarn, but you can stop whenever you want. You'll just want to meet me back at peg 1. So you'll meet me in this position when you're ready to get started with your sweater color. Okay, so now we're about to turn around and start with our sweater color. So I'm going to cut my waste yarn. If you need to keep going on your waste yarn, just to keep practicing that back to forth motion, feel free to stop the video. Keep going until you feel comfortable and push play again. You're going to take your other yarn. The most important thing, and this is kind of hard, it's not hard, you just got to pay attention. I don't know if it matters a whole too lot, but I've been doing it every time just to make sure, so I'd recommend to do it. When you go to tie your knot, you're only going to tie 1. Don't tie 2 or it'll get stuck. You'll want to make sure that this goes around your hump, so that your yarn color is on top. And you can kind of pull it on down here too, just to kind of tighten that up a little bit. It's going to pull it off, and so it may not be 100% needed to do it like that. but I'd rather do it and not need it than need it and not do it. I have to restart again. So we're going to pull that. Before we get too far into this, we're going to just tighten that just to make sure that's okay and good. Again, don't tie it again, just keep it the one. We're going to do 15 rows of this. Just so you know though, if your machine has a counter on it, your counter will be incorrect. So you'll need to make sure that you're counting yourself back and forth at every row that you do. So this is row 1. Again, this is 27. This is the hump. We're going to make it go underneath, and then we're going to turn right back around and keep going. 2, 3. Again, that sounds because I have a gear broken. 4, 5, 6, 14, and 15. So at the end of 15, you should be here. We are now going to clear your counter. We're going to take this out. And we are going to cast onto these empty pegs. So we are going to go behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind. And then you're going to put it in, because that is peg 1 and we've already cast it onto that peg. We don't need to keep casting because we've already done it. Now you're going to just knit in the tube, in the round or whatever, for 30 rows. And you're just going to keep going for 30 rows. And your counter will be right this time. I mean, unless your counter has its own problems. My counter on a normal base is usually right. Okay, so now we have finished 30 rows. It should look a little something like this. One side should be much longer than the other. I'm actually really loving the way this yarn is striping up. Stop right before you get to peg 1. We are about to do something. Okay, so we are going to go now to whatever your top number was. We're going to stop at that pin on the next row. So for me, I'm going to stop at pin 27. So we are going to go until we get to 27 on row 31. Okay, so this is 27 for me right here. This is where we're going to stop. So you should be equal with where your panel is. Now we're going to put in our leg holes. This is the hardest part of the whole pattern. but you only do it on this row and then you're done. And it takes you just a little bit, and it's not a big deal. I promise. I'll show you how to do it. It's okay. It'll be fine. So you're going to take your working yarn. Don't cut it out. You're going to just take it out. Make sure that it is hooked on 27. So this is 27. And you are going to, we're going to go just until it pulls that underneath into the machine so we don't have to hold it. It'll make sure that it stays in there. So we're going to pull it and we're going to stop there. Almost like we're casting off, but make sure you don't cut your things because we're going to cast off for our legs. Now, we're going to go back to this. I'm just going to show you its legs. Whatever your leg number is, secret, all of them are 4. That's the best leg measurement I've come up with. If your dog has sausage legs, if your dog has really big sausage legs and you need to be a little wider than this, and keep in mind that it stretches some. If your dog's legs can't fit this, which, unless your dog is really overweight, it should be fine. You can add 1 to your leg number, but then you have to subtract 1 to your row number. Or to your chest number, sorry. So, we're doing our leg number, which is 4. We're going to cast off 4 pins. So for this, you're going to need your needle and your crochet hook. It's very easy, I promise. It's not as hard as it looks. So, I think I'm going to try to zoom in just a little more. Let's see. Okay. You're going to be watching right in here. This is where we're going to be working. So, what we are going to do, this is in your machine. It's secure. It ain't going nowhere. So just kind of shove it out of the way. We are going to turn our handle until this very next pin goes underneath into the machine and releases this. So we're going to turn, go slow. Right there. Now that is released. So you're going to take your needle and you're going to pick this up as if you're casting off. Don't have your yarn in here. Just pick it up. Make sure you have it secure, because if you drop it, all of these stitches are going to come undone, and it's not the easiest to, it's doable, but it's kind of a pain to have to go redo all of these. So make sure you're secure in there. You're now, from your needle, you're going to transfer onto your crochet hook. You're just going to pull it just slightly, and you're going to push your crochet hook into that loop. So now your crochet hook and your needle is in that hook. Once your crochet hook is secure, again, make sure you're in it. Make sure you have all of the threads, all of it. You can pull this out and just set it off to the side. You don't need it right this second. Now you're going to take your working yarn. You're going to loop your crochet hook and you're going to pull it through. And you're going to make a loop on your thing. Now you have successfully casted off that first one. So now you're literally going to just, you can pull out a little bit. It doesn't really matter. You're going to just kind of put your crochet hook to the side. Put your working yarn to the side. Pick up your needle again. Now we're going to cast off number 2. So that was number 1. We're going to do this 4 times. That's it. That's really all of it. So again, we're going to crank, 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 crank very, very slowly until it releases that. Very next one, we're going to get it with your needle and make sure it's all the way secure on there so that you don't lose it. Now, keep your working yarn on that loop. But same thing, you're going to push it through the same loop right there. Once it's secure on there, you can take your needle out and set it to the side. Now for this one, you're going to take this loop, the loop you just picked up, and you're going to pull it through your other one. Oh no, don't do what I just did, because now it's going to start unraveling. You're going to pull this loop through that loop, just like that. And then you're going to wrap your working yarn around, and you're going to pull it through. Now you've casted off that one. So you're just going to set this to the side. Now you'll notice that this loop is not hugging these reds. So this is actually about to pull this into the machine, and we don't want that. So we're going to back this up just the tiniest bit so I can push that down over those. So that was 1 and 2. We're going to cast off number 3 just like that. I'm going to take our needle and pick it up. We're going to pull this through, take that out, and you're going to pull this. Sometimes it's a little hard, but you can use your fingers to help. Pull it through, wrap this around, make another one, and pull it through. So that's 1, 2, 3. This is going to be the last one we cast off. Again, if you'll notice, it's not hugging those red. We want it to be. So we're going to back up just a little bit. Oh, nope. So that I can push that down. And then now we are going to go until it lets that go. Just like that. We're going to take our needle. We're going to pick it up. We're going to transfer it over to our crochet hook. Set that to the side. And then we're going to pull it through. And then we're going to wrap your working yarn around and pull it through, making a new loop. Alright, so now if you'll notice, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 that have that have nothing on it. That's what our goal is. This is our little leg. If you decided to add another, you would do this here for number 5, but I'm only doing 4. I'd recommend only doing 4, so that's what we're going to do. Now, you have this loop on your crochet hook. What you're going to do is you're going to pull the loop, and you can pull it to make it big, it doesn't really matter. And you're going to hook it on that next pin, and you're going to pull it. Don't pull too hard, but snug it up. So now you have the loop here. It's hooked on this pin, the pin right after number 4. You're going to also take your working yarn and hook it on that pin. So you should have 2 things on top of this pin, and then the one thing hugging at the bottom. And then you're going to feed this back in here. Oh. And we're going to close it. So again, you should have that loop and your working yarn in the hook, and then just the yarn hugging down below. So now we're going to pull this out, and we're going to find what our chest number is. For me, it is 11. If you need one of these. So we're going to do 11 pins. So this is going to count as pin number 1. So 1, 2, 3, and so on. We're going to just knit. But we're going to make sure that both of these things get pulled into the machine. Just like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to check one more time because I'm 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so here's 11 for me. And now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to cast off 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to make sure that it stays. We're going to pull this out, close it. Make sure that this stays on your number 11. Triple check 100 times if you need to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to turn it so that it just takes that into the machine and secures it so it's not going anywhere. Again, you're going to need both of your tools. We're going to do all 4, and then it's easy going from there on. This is the last of the hard part, and then we'll be done. So you're going to scroll. You're going to turn your thing to let go of that first one. You're going to pick it up. Make sure it's secure. Pull your crochet hook and transfer the loop over. Once it's secure, pull your needle out and move it to the side, out of the way. We're going to loop this working yarn around your crochet hook and pull it through, making a new loop. And then set your crochet hook to the side. You can just set it there. And then that's the end of number 1. We're going to turn it. We're going to pick it up. We're going to transfer it. We're going to remove that. So now on number 2, we're going to pull this through. Then we're going to wrap it and then pull it through again. That's number 2. Again, make sure you're watching that doesn't come undone, because it does most of the time when you go to pull. So before you get turning, make sure that that'll be open for you. So now we're going to do number 3. You're going to take your needle, go underneath, do a transfer, pull it out, and then we're going to pull it through, wrap around, pull it through. And that's 1, 2, 3. We're on our last one. We're going to turn this until it's released. We're going to pick this up, and then we're going to push it through. We're going to pull this around, wrap it, pull it through. So now you've done 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you'll notice, we're back at number 1. I'm going to back this up a little because that came up off those little bunny ears. That's what I call these little pegs. Now you're going to take this loop and you're going to put it back on 1. You're going to pull it. You're going to put your working yarn on 1 as well. It'll have 2 on peg 1. We'll have 2 things up top and something down at the bottom. And then you're going to feed it through here. Now, you're going to knit like normal until you get back to where your empty pegs are. It's just the 1 row. We're just going to knit. Just knit across. Okay, so now this is our first empty peg. Now we're literally going to just cast back on. So we're going to go behind and front, behind and front. That one ends in front. It's fine. This one might be tight because you have 2 things on it. Make sure both of them get pushed down to hug those rabbit ears, those little red rabbit ears. You're going to push that through. You cast it on this side. Now you're going to knit here until you get to those empty pegs again. So now we're at the empty pegs again. We're going to pull it out. You're going to cast on. You're going to go behind and front, behind and front. You're going to put it in here. Remember to make sure this goes all the way down because it's going to be a little tight. But before you keep going, you're going to reset your spinner, your counter. I don't know what I'm talking about. And then we're gonna knit 27 rows now. Just like normal, you've cast it on these pegs. So now you're just gonna knit in the round, in the tube, whatever you want to call it, for 27 rows. As you go, you'll notice you have your little leg holes. Okay. We just finished row 27. We moved on to 28. We are going to stop and we are going to cast off with waste yarn. That's it. I mean, other than creating our cuffs and closing the ends with and removing the waste yarn, we're done. It's that easy. If you don't know how to cast on with waste yarn, you're going to basically just change the color. I usually knit a few and then tie them off just once. And then do 5 to 10 rows. I tend to do a lot than needed on the cast off, just because this is the side that's not secure. You have enough. Once you feel comfortable with the amount that you have, you'll just snip your waste yarn and then crank it off, which just means quite literally keep cranking even after it takes all of the yarn. Keep cranking until it falls off the machine. And it eventually will. Sometimes it gets hung up on certain pegs and you kind of have to help it out. I don't know why it does this sometimes, but it's okay. We'll help her. No big deal. Okay. So now we're going to move our machine out of the way. We are going to just look it over. It's going to look a little kind of funny when you first pull it off because it hasn't been stretched, but you're kind of getting an idea of what it'll look like. You can carefully stretch it at this stage, so you'll quite literally just pull on it. Just pull on it and get those stitches set in. If you'll notice, the holes where your legs go, they're going to be circular, they're going to be the shape you want, but they're probably not going to be the cleanest, and in some places they're going to have bigger holes than others. You could technically, after removing the waste yarn, you could technically keep it just here and be done with it, but I'd really recommend doing the little cuff on here, and I will show you exactly what to do to make that happen. So how to do it. So I'd really recommend doing it if you can. But you'll see that this is the little tummy area, these are the legs, and this is where your head is going to go. So we are going to cast off. We're going to start on the head side. We are going to find our crochet hook. You're going to get your crochet hook. First of all, we're going to unknot where this waste yarn is here. Why is my camera not figuring it out? all of a sudden my camera stopped focusing very well. So hopefully you'll be able to tell what's happening, but oh, that's why. Duh. Okay. Figured it out. So we untied where our waist yarn or our yarn ends are. You'll want to keep up with where these are. We're going to turn it and look at it here. So we are going to pick up, you can see where this yarn is. We're going to pick up this one at the bottom. And then we're going to turn and pick up this one that's holding that pink yarn. And we're going to pull it through. And you're going to pick up every single one from then on and pull it through. I'm going to go here, pull it through. Every single one. It's very easy. Okay, now that we're back to this front part, I'm going to go ahead, I think, and pick up this right here. And then I'm going to go into this first stitch here, which I notice is a little hard to see because of the color on the camera. But we're going to pick up just this very first, we're going to go into, not going to pick it up, we're going to go into that very first stitch here. We're going to get the tail of your sweater color, you're going to wrap it around and you're going to pull it through like that, and then you're going to pull that through like that, and then you're going to wrap it once more, you're going to pull it through, and then you're going to pull it all the way through. And you're going to tighten that up. And that's going to knot it. That's going to secure it. Now you can remove your waist yarn. After your waist yarn has been removed, this is... Oh, I missed one. Oops. Well, so I missed one. What you can do, what I tend to do, especially when it's for myself, is I'm probably gonna do, this one's for myself, so I'm gonna cheat. Don't do this if it's for a paid thing unless they are aware. You could put a crochet border around this and save it, but I'm gonna just pull this. I'm gonna hide this tail in this collar. And I'm going to keep going down until I get to this point so that I can just tie this around. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up this loop and I'm going to pull this through here and up, and then I'm going to pull that through there and up, maybe not up yet. Pull that up, and then look at that. And now there will be, it doesn't look like anything, but there will be a little knot here. But that's a way to fix that. This is how your collar should look. It's going to go in just a little bit compared to the rest, and it's going to be a little tighter. But that's what you want, because you don't want it to stretch out around their neck. So, because you want it to be all big and baggy and hang down around their neck. But as you'll notice, here's the neck portion, and then here's my leg portion, which is kind of hard to see. with this pattern. And then here's the tummy, and then here's the bottom. So we're going to be holding this with the tummy up. We're going to be looking at the inside. As you look at the bottom, one side has the yarn ends. We'll go ahead and untie this over here. Untie your yarn ends, but don't mess something up. Just untie it. Right there. Alright, once you've untied your ends and they're opened up like that, go to the other side. And we are going to do just like we did before, starting at this side without the yarn ends, picking up your sweater color, the very last one that you see on the row, and then going and picking up the next one and pulling it through. And then go into the next one, pulling it through, and pulling it through, all the way down until you get to the very end. Make sure you don't lose them. I don't think that you can fix this one like I fixed the last one. Again, just making sure you pick up every loop. There's still one here. And then once you have all of the loops, you're going to take the yarn end that matches your color. You're going to pull a loop through. And then you're going to wrap it around and pull that whole thing through. And then you're going to tighten that. And that's just going to be a knot that secures that. And now you can pull off the waist yarn. I will warn you, the waist yarn on a flat panel is a little more difficult to pull. I haven't found the easiest way to get this waist yarn off, if I'm fully honest, other than cutting it. Because of the way it twists on the end. But if you have an easier way to do this, by all means, do it that way. You're just taking the waist yarn off now. But because of the way it twists on the ends here, it tends to mess up. So I'll do that usually, and then I will just undo each row, but I'll leave the edges, and then I'll just cut off the edges at the very end. That's on that side. And so then I end up with all of this here, and then I just very carefully, don't snip your project, but just cut off some of that pink or whatever your waist yarn is until you can pull it out. And then just throw it out of the way. That's the bottom of your sweater. So now everything, all the waist yarn is done. Again, you could just stop here. Your little leg holes may look not the neatest though. But if you're not so worried about it, then you could just be done here. I recommend adding in the crochet little cuffs. What we're going to do is you're going to take your yarn, whatever yarn you want to use, and you're going to create a slip knot. However you do it, I do it a little bit weird, so I won't show y'all. But create your slip knot and put it on your crochet hook. You're going to pick up your stuff. I always start from somewhere in this chest area, because that'll be the most hidden on your dog, rather than out here, because this will be on the outside, like on his side. If you start here, it'll be inside of his legs, and nobody will know. So we're going to take this, You're gonna just pick a spot in here. And you can kind of see, we're gonna just follow along some of these stitches. So we're gonna pick this up and we're gonna just do a single crochet. So you're gonna wrap it. And I'm not the best crocheter. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I did knitting for a reason, but we're gonna just pull that, and then that, and you're just gonna kind of work around every stitch that you see, and you're just gonna do a single crochet around each one. So I just kind of guess. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, I promise. It's not, no one's going to be able to tell. I just kind of look and see where I feel like the next stitch is and where I feel like needs one. And you just put it in. So like, I'm going to put one in here. You're going to grab your yarn, pull it, wrap it, pull it through. You could do a double crochet if you want it to be a little wider. I do 2 rows of single crochet for these. You could stop at 1. You could do longer and make it more like a sleeve. However, I would be careful just to make sure you don't make it too long where, no ma'am, no, get down. Thank you. She's a little too excited for her sweater. This one, I don't know if I'm going to give it to her or what it's going to happen to. She's got probably 5 or 6 in the last couple of days. But I'm just going to keep on going. Like if you'll notice right here, this is like a pretty big gap, and so doing the crochets, the single crochets over that, just helps give it a little more, makes it a little more secure, helps clean it up, that kind of thing. I recommend doing at least one. Now that we're here, I'm actually going to keep going because I want 2 rows myself. You could stop here. You could just do a little slip stitch and be done. But I actually want 2 rows to extend that cuff. And you could do this part again however you want. You could also put a crochet to like clean up a single crochet around all the way around like this bottom edge and then up the sides and up throughout this part, just to clean this edge up. But I don't, just because I like the way this rolls up in the bottom. I know that it doesn't look the cleanest, but it helps keep your puppy clean. And so that's my take on it. You do it however you like. And then when you get to this point, you will go into the next stitch, pull a loop, and then we're going to just slip stitch it, and then we'll pull some through, cut that, and we'll pull this through to tighten it and make a knot. And then these you'll want to just weave in, but that is your first leg. It just makes a nice little cuff, makes it look a lot cleaner than just the open hole. So now you're going to do the other side the exact same way and tighten it up. And that is our two little sleeves, and honestly that is our whole sweater, other than just hiding in your ends. There's your sweater. You can stretch it again just to really set in everything, and you're done.